Hey, what's up, guys? As you can see, we've got some nasty weather down here in South Carolina, but I know you're not here for that, so let's go take a look at this final build. Alrighty, we've got something quite special here. This is the last of the 3 guns that I received from Drozdmax that were his parts guns. And this one comes with the original box. The last one didn't have that. For those of you guys who care about that stuff, we've got a 13 cubic inch, 3000 psi Ninja Pro V2 bottle. That'll give you 1100 psi output. Yeah, you're going to want to get a bigger bottle than that for this, but that'll get you started. And like I said in the previous video about that particular bottle, it's going to be one that you will continue to come back to, and it never needs hydro testing. And because it's small, it fills up really quick. And I've noticed lately that there's just a ton of variety of compressors out there now that'll do 5,000 psi. They've even got ones that you can hook up to a car battery. I don't know how well they work, but they're out there. And while we're talking about compressors, I rebuilt my Emerald air compressor not long ago. I was actually looking to do a conversion. I was going to turn this thing, use the motor from it. I'd get like a dual piston shop compressor and use the motor to make a nice shop compressor. But while I was online, I got on AliExpress and actually found the spare parts I needed to fix that one. And they've also got all kinds of young hang parts out there that you can get. So yeah, you can get spare parts to fix these now. It used to not be that way. So I'm kind of glad I didn't throw that one away. All right, back to this. We've got our spare parts that came out of it. The top rail, the original top rail. I went with a smaller top rail than I have been putting on it. I just want something that fit a little bit better, because you've only got a dovetail on the frame right in here. And I've got another Drost, and I believe that it got one of these rails with it, and it's steel. I think it might be factory, and this is basically the same size as that one. It is still too tall to see your front sight. That's not really important to virtually anybody, because you don't really need sights with these things, for one. And much better than iron sights for one of these things is just a hollow sight, red dot sight. I did order a 3D printer last night, so I don't think it'll be anything to whip something up that just fits over that, for anybody who actually wanted that and run one of these aluminum rails. Before I got the printer, I figured I better do a lot of research, and especially about CAD programs. And I found a program called FreeCAD, which I think is really awesome because it lets you store your files on your own machine. You don't have to keep them up in a cloud or anything like that. And it seems like it's got all the features that I'll ever need. I don't know. We'll see more on that. I'm just starting to learn it. And I will say, it is nowhere near as complicated as I thought it would be to get to know it. All right, enough about that. I had a folding stock adapter. I had one of those left. So we've got that on a telescopic AR-15 um, stock. And guys, I am almost out of the separate custom AR-15 stock adapters, and I seriously doubt I'll ever be getting any more. Um, and occasionally people ask me, hey, can you sell me one of those? Can you sell me one of those? Well, no, what I've got left is going into builds. I made the shroud for it. It turned out pretty much perfect. I used a plastic spacer on this one instead of an aluminum bushing right in there. What that does is it helps center it, and because this pushes back on this angle, so having a bushing between the shroud and the barrel keeps everything centered as it pushes back. And I was making them out of aluminum on my Mickey Mouse lathe, which was not fun at all. So I got some round plastic stock, and that was much easier to make. It doesn't mar up the barrel, and because it's plastic and has a little give, it's got a nice friction fit in there. Just a better choice of materials for making that bushing in general. This one came with rails all over it. And it also came with this hand grip, so I figured I'd just go ahead and put it back on it. But the problem with having a rail on this side was you couldn't do it and have Sergey's board at the same time. I wanted to preserve Drozdmax work on this, and I also didn't want to have two open bolt holes. Now, but to have that rail there, it covers up the two buttons. So I made a plate out of sheet metal, and these two tabs actuate the buttons. I'll show you. So with this one, you get the best of both worlds. And I've never seen one done like that before. It took me a while to figure out how I was going to do it, and it took longer to implement it actually. But yeah, that's a nice little feature of this one. So it shouldn't get in the way of anything you want to put on here either. Now, I will say this about this board. This particular one has a certain file on it that only I've been running, and I've been running it for a few months now just to make sure that there aren't any bugs in it, and I haven't found any, and I've tested it pretty thoroughly. So I decided to put that file on this board, and it gives you a really cool little feature. I'm not going to tell you what it is. I'm only going to tell the person who gets this what it is. But it's something I wanted for a long time, and Sergey figured out how to do it. We've got the twist shut-off one here, and I made a straight pin for it in case this one gives you any problems. This is the pin that allows you to bleed this when you shut it off instead of firing it, because if you shut this off with this pin in it, it would go ahead and bleed your magazine once it gets towards the end of the travel. And I just made this straight pin so it wouldn't do that, because I haven't seen it in any of my customers, but on some of the reviews of this part, that pin was binding up. And I figured it was because it has two different outer diameters as opposed to a straight pin. And so that's just something that I've been including in case the user encounters any problems with that pin actuating the valve. But so far, so good. Back to the board. This one does have the 5K SPS, which is currently the best program that we have, the most advanced, I'll say, because since I came out with this, I've been doing builds. I've been charging more for the builds than 4K, and I think it's justifiable in the extra work it takes, the higher level of tuning, and what the user gets as far as more functionality in the end product. Now the 4K, I've done a ton of those builds. I don't know how many of those builds I've got that are out there in the wild. I would really like to know. But yeah, I'm just looking at something up here on my bench that I wanted to tell you about. The last build, that little smoke glass window, Ray gave me a bottle full of those. I'm trying to find something around here the same size as the bottle, but the bottle was about a little smaller than that diameter and about that tall. One that you get magnets in. And this bottle was full of these, and I used them all up, and I haven't had any in, I guess, a year. And the way I was installing them was a friction fit in this window. So I'd cut a hole and then put that part up to it and see how it fit. And if it was too tight in an area, I would work on the hole some more until I could just pop the thing in there and it would stay with a nice friction fit. I did that so many times that I got my brain to where I just knew exactly how big to make that hole. And I came across that window several weeks ago when I was working on the one before this, and I'd already cut the hole in the housing, and then I came across that window and I said, I wonder just how good a fit it is. And I put it in there and it was a friction fit, first try. There was a tiny bit of room around the edges. And since I got to looking at this thing and I'm like, well, that's kind of scratched up. I can't use it anyway, so whatever. So then I made this one. I said, well, I wonder if it was a fluke. So just for kicks and giggles, I put this up to it. And I don't want to push that in there, but that gives you an idea how many of these things I've done. And most of those are 4K. The 4K is just a little more user-friendly and not as expensive, but everybody wants this 5K SPS, and I don't blame them. This one's also coming with one of those flashlights that I've been including with the remote trigger on the switch. I'm not even going to bother to take that out of the package, but you get the gist of it. So that is that, and this one is up for grabs, so hit me up. I'll see y'all later.